My sexuality and my my expression, my creativity of who I am, did not fly in my house, and there was a lot of violence about this in my home.
I started to say I'm gay, but I thought it sounded so frivolous that I said, I just want to tell you I'm homosexual. I try to make it sound very, very scientific.
But to tell somebody that you're trans, that you identify as female, the world wasn't ready for that then. I mean, when you think that there was no internet, very few books on the subject, you know, television wouldn't touch it, you know, radio wouldn't touch it. We didn't know what the hell was going on, you know. We were just out there being ourselves, claiming our identities, and nobody wanted to believe us or accept it.
My father would, you know, I had terrible physical beatings from him, trying to beat this out of me.
Most people didn't guess. And and that used to be a mark of pride. Oh, nobody knows I'm gay.
But I was committed then to being gay, and it was a time of revolution in the country, and you know, I became committed to being free. You know, part of the whole civil rights movement, people wanting to be free and women wanting to be free, and we wanted to stop the war and there be peace and love, and being gay was part of this to me.
You know, you try to purge everything. You know, I tried to bury these feelings and you know, conform to society and do all that, but that didn't work for me, and that's not who I was. And I mean, I literally was standing at the edge of a cliff ready to jump off because I'd come out and it had gone disastrously, and I decided to go see a therapist and get some help, some support, and it was the best thing I've ever done in my life.
Somehow I just was going to take a stand and put my foot down. Enough was enough with this. I was not going to be beaten by him, nothing, no more. I said, if you do not accept me being gay, you will never see me again. I really declared who I was, and I was brave enough to do it to a man who had almost killed me.
So at 17, my mother kicked me out. I promptly ran away to San Francisco to find an older woman and go to Berkeley. Didn't quite work out, and I wound up for 9 months hanging with the street kids. Most of the kids were bisexual or gay. Most of the kids had been kicked out by their parents, and in order to survive, the kids turned to petty thievery. They sold drugs to each other, and sometimes they slept on couches, and they weren't really going to sleep on the couch. And very few kids get back home, and very few are ever the same. So if your parents say they want to kick you out, do whatever you can to stay home, please, so you can finish high school, so you can go to college, so you can have a career, so you don't wind up years later still messed up, okay? So parents, don't do it, and kids, even if you think you want to leave, don't leave. It's not good to leave. It's really not good. Stay home.
I was in a local bar near where I lived, and a local gay bar was more like just friendship. It really sometimes wasn't a hookup, and this young man approached me to help him push his car because he said the engine had died. And the moment I put my hands on the back of the car to help him push it, suddenly 6 of his friends showed up out of the blue, and all 7 of them beat me. At that time, we were actually right across from a restaurant, and people were sitting there eating in the window, watching me get beat up and not lifting a finger because I just came out of that gay bar.
Before the AIDS crisis, everyone was kind of crazy and wild. And after the AIDS crisis, everyone grew up.
But people are starting to get sores, Kaposi sarcoma. People are bruising. People are losing weight. And people are getting scared.
You'd hear about a friend of yours who was in the hospital, and you'd go and there would be a skeleton, you know, because people were just losing weight like that and gone.
And we didn't know how you get ill. So we didn't know that if you put a fork down on a plate and I touched it, could I get AIDS?
In the African American community, if it was found out that you were HIV, they didn't want you in church for real. When it was found out that you had AIDS, they basically wouldn't let you in.
My roommate in New York at the time, he was on AZT, and I remember one time the side effects were so horrible, a bunch of us were just holding on to him as he screamed because the pain of the side effects of a drug so that he could live longer.
And the communities, the lesbians and the gays, they weren't really friends. But when AIDS happened, the women took care of the men as they died, and we became a community.
I joined ACT UP and went to protests and screamed, you know, ACT UP, fight back, fight AIDS. We're here, we're queer, get used to it. Took buses down to DC for storming the FDA over slow approval to drugs, you know, going to die-ins, going to kiss-ins, doing anything to get notice. Went down to Washington and the AIDS quilt was there. There were panels to people I didn't know had died. And I would be finding out then, at that moment, that they were dead and gone.
I have always considered myself part of a movement, part of a candidacy. I wish I had time to explain everything I did. Almost everything was done in the eyes of the gay movement.
He was, you know, this guy and that woman and this transgender person. They were determined to show that they were not going to take this sort of treatment and that people couldn't get away with just shooting gay people and get off of the hook, which is what had happened. I'm not necessarily proud of the fact that there was violence and that things were destroyed and a lot of people were injured. But, you know, for example, the policemen that night had put black tape over their badges so they couldn't be identified, so they could basically get away with whatever they did to people that night. And so those sort of tactics were something that we realized that at that point we weren't going to put up with anymore. Harvey had made it really clear that once you come out of that closet, you don't get pushed back in again. You don't let people, for whatever reason they have, put you back in some place that they're comfortable with. And that only through pushing on through that and being a part of something bigger than yourself and more important than yourself, that's the only way that we would ever get the kind of rights that we deserved and that we needed.
Study, find books from people who have already looked at those scriptures that are usually used against you and show how they were incorrectly interpreted so that you could say, oh, I don't have to be afraid of those scriptures no more.
It's going to be okay. Your child is not going to hell. You know, you're not a failure as a parent. You're only a failure as a parent if you don't support your child, and if you push your child away, and if you throw your child away.
Not everyone has to like you, but they must respect you.
To know that there's a whole world out there of accepting people. And I've seen them. I've seen them every place. I've seen them in South America. I have seen them in the streets of London, I've seen them in Berlin, I've seen them in St. Petersburg, Russia, one of the most homophobic areas in the world. There are people who will accept you and gravitate towards those people because, quite frankly, you don't need the rest of those people in your life.
Give love. If you want to receive love, also give love. Don't just wait for people to love and accept you. It's a two-way street.
There are states, even though there's now gay marriage, and we've run that fight, there's still states, though, that once they get married, they still could be kicked out of their jobs. Don't just be passive and just enjoy your rights, but rather continue the fight. Take what we've done and take it further.